The Force is old and full of shadows.
The asteroid does not announce itself. Space does not. What comes first is the percussion, micro-debris striking the facility's outer hull in irregular rhythms, each impact no louder than a fingernail tapped against stone. The plating has absorbed 10,000 such impacts over decades of operation. They have always meant nothing. Until the approach signature appears on the landing bay's passive sensors. The docking bay officer, a Khalidahin, pale and large-eyed, with the particular stillness of a species that has never needed a mouth to communicate, looks at the readout. He does not speak. He broadcasts outward through the low-frequency telepathic field his people maintain. And within 4 seconds, every Khalidahin in the facility feels the shape of what is coming. The landing bay doors open. In, out, in, out. It does not sound like medical equipment. It does not sound mechanical, though it is both. It sounds like something alive and armored and permanent, a rhythm imposed on a body that cannot maintain its own rhythm without it. The respirator does not quicken with urgency. It does not slow with caution. It simply continues, metronomic, absolute, as the black figure fills the corridor. 2 Khalidahin medics scatter from the hallway entrance. A medical droid behind them clips a wall junction trying to follow. Its alloy frame hits the durasteel floor with the sound of a conversation ending. The respirator fills the hall. Then, a child crying. High, thin, urgent, the sound of a newborn asserting itself against a universe it has not yet had time to distrust. It comes from behind the sealed door at the corridor's end. And beneath it, nearly swallowed by it, something quieter. Not crying, a different frequency entirely. The listener will not consciously register the second sound. That is not an accident. The delivery chamber door opens without a hand touching it. Darth Vader does not enter a room. He arrives in it. The delivery chamber, pale durasteel bolted to raw asteroid stone, the air carrying the faint mineral smell of crushed rock and medical-grade oxygen, looks very much like a room that has been waiting. Padam Amidala is on the medical table. She is conscious. The word barely applies. Her eyes are open, and she is breathing, and both of these things appear to cost something she no longer has a surplus of. The monitoring equipment flanking the table displays numbers that have been flagged critical. The numbers do not know how to represent what is actually wrong with her. There are no numbers for this. The 4 Khalidahin physicians are pressed against the far wall. They did not choose to move there. Their distress broadcasts at a frequency no human ear registers. In the room it manifests as a low, near subsonic hum beneath everything else. Luke is screaming. He arrived in this universe with his fists clenched and his lungs fully operational, and he is using both from inside the left warming unit. The medical droid turns. It has no capacity for fear, which makes it the only entity in the room not performing around its own. Lord Vader, it says. The mother is in acute cardiovascular distress. We cannot identify a physiological cause. Delivery is complete. 2 neonates, both viable, both. I did not ask you to speak, Vader says. He does not raise his voice. He has never needed to. The droid stops. His gaze moves across the room. Luke in the left unit. The Khalidahin along the wall, motionless. The monitoring equipment, its readouts descending. Padam, and then the second warming unit, to the right, where the other child lies, 4 minutes old, wrapped in neonatal thermal fabric, and is not crying. She is not sleeping. She is awake. Her eyes, dark and fully open, are oriented upward, and she has already found something to pay attention to. Vader crosses to her unit. His gauntleted hand moves above the transparasteel cover. He does not open it yet. Anakin Padam's voice is the sound of water with no depth remaining in it. It is not weak. Weakness implies a state that could be corrected. This is something else. She is spending what she has left with the precision of a person who has never wasted anything in her life. He does not move toward her. The mathematics of what he has done to her, the volcanic shore, the moment his grip closed around her throat, do not reduce to a movement. They reduce to a respirator counting seconds, and the distance between them and neither of them crossing it. There is good in you still, she says. I know there is, The Kaladahin's subsonic hum intensifies. They are a species of empaths by biology. What they are receiving from the two humans in this room will take their healers months to process. "Please," Padam says. Her voice loses its air pressure mid-word, not from grief, from simple physiological depletion. Both of them. "Let someone," her vocal cords stop. "She is mine," Vader says. Present tense. Not was, not would have been. Already claimed, in a grammar that does not leave room for appeal. He opens the unit. His right hand descends, the gauntlet that has closed around viewport glass, that has held an ignited lightsaber through 100 engagements. That is by any measurement an instrument designed for destruction, and it descends around the infant with a precision that has no business existing in something built for force. She is smaller than his palm. She fits inside it as though the geometry had been solved in advance. He lifts her. She does not cry. She looks at him with those dark eyes, Padam's quality, Padam's assessment. Reading him from 4 minutes of existence, and the respirator cycles once, twice, and the only sounds in the chamber are the mechanics of his breathing, and Luke still screaming, and the monitors, and the Kaladahin, their hum now something close to grief. "You are mine now," Vader says, barely audible above the respirator, not to the room, not to the dying, not to the galaxy, which does not receive a vote, to her. What follows does not deserve to be dwelt upon. 3 durations, 2 seconds, 3, 2, and the sounds that accompany them are brief and sequential, and then absent. The Kaladahin cannot scream. The medical droids are faster, metal, and then the floor, and then silence. He told himself the boy would be found. He told himself this was mercy. He did not ask himself whether either of these things was true. He had 600 meters of corridor between him and his ship, a fractured empire to manage, and a newborn daughter he had no idea how to keep alive. Darth Vader, the most feared instrument of death the galaxy had yet produced, walked through the silence of Polis Massa, trying to remember if he had ever actually held a baby. He passes Luke's unit on the way out. He stops. 3 seconds. The respirator marks them. Then he continues walking. The command shuttle is already spooling. He programmed the coordinates before he entered the facility. He always programs coordinates before he enters anything. 23 years of operational discipline do not pause for grief. He places Leia in the co-pilot seat. There is nothing appropriate in the shuttle to hold a 4-minute-old infant. He uses what is available, spare cabling looped into a shallow nest against the seat's curve, cockpit thermal regulation set 3 degrees above standard. She stares through the viewport at the star field with the absolute attention of someone who has been waiting for it. "You will not be soft," he says, not to himself, to her. She is 4 minutes old and he is already telling her how she will be built, because someone has to, and there is only him. The hyperdrive engages. The stars become lines. The fortress does not have a morning. What it has is a transition, the automated systems cycling from night protocols to day protocols at 0500 local time, the corridor lighting shifting from low amber to working white, the ventilation increasing its rate by 6% to push fresh filtered air through the sublevels before the upper facility comes online. Outside, the sky is what the sky always is, orange and black, lit from below by lava rivers rather than from above by any star. The twin moons of Jestafad's system are not visible from Mustafar's surface. Nothing gentle is visible from Mustafar's surface. In the sub-level nursery, the lighting transition happens at the same time as everything else, because Darth Vader programmed the nursery's internal schedule to match the standard Imperial day cycle, 24 hours, to the second. Leia has been awake for 45 minutes. She is at her desk, a circuit diagram spread flat across the surface, one small finger tracing the path of a power relay from its source junction to its terminus. The stylus in her other hand makes occasional marks, not corrections to the diagram, annotations. She narrates problems to herself the way other children narrate games. "If this is drawing full current at peak load," she murmurs, "then this junction is the weak point." "So you'd want," Leia, DIT-7 says. Wake cycle. Nutrition in 6 minutes. DIT-7's voice has been modulated to remove warmth without introducing hostility. It lands somewhere in between, the sound of a well-maintained machine performing a function it was built for and will perform indefinitely without complaint or enthusiasm. Efficient furniture. I'm already awake, Leia says. She does not look up. A pause. DEET-7 processes this against its biometric feed. Your sleep cycle indicators suggested. I know what my sleep cycle indicators suggest, she says. I can read them myself. Now she looks up, and her expression is the same expression she has worn since she first learned to have expressions. Patient, direct, already 3 questions ahead. Can you transfer the schematic I requested last night? The atmospheric recycler on level 2. That schematic is rated for technical personnel only. Leia sets down her stylus. She folds her hands on the desk with the deliberateness of someone who has decided a conversation deserves her full attention. I am not technical personnel, she says. I am 5. What are you going to do about it? DEET-7 processes this for a duration that, in a biological being, would constitute genuine difficulty. The schematic has been transferred to your terminal. Thank you, 7, Leia says. She picks up her stylus. The volcanic rumble moves through the floor, deep, liquid, constant, the geological voice of a planet in perpetual interior violence. Leia has never known silence that did not have this underneath it. She does not register it consciously. It is simply what the floor does. By the time Red arrives to run the morning technical session, Leia has finished her annotations and stacked the diagrams in the order she intends to address them. Red is an R-series astromech reprogrammed with an educational library that covers engineering fundamentals through Level 6 certification standards. It was, when installed, considered more than sufficient. It whistles a greeting. Leia responds with the specific 2-note whistle she developed at age 3 that means proceed. Red proceeds. Identify the pressure compensation valve in the secondary flow system, it says, projecting the Mark IV atmospheric processor schematic above the desk surface. Leia identifies it inside 2 seconds. Her finger stops on the correct component before Red has fully finished the sentence. Here, she says. But it is positioned wrong. Red's photoreceptor tilts. This was not an expected response. The valve is positioned according to standard installation specifications, it says. Standard installation specifications calculate for standard atmospheric input, Leia says. They did not account for volcanic particulate load. If the primary flow backs up under high ash conditions, which on Mustafar is not an edge case, it is every 3rd day. This valve fails before the bypass can open. The whole system goes into pressure lock. She draws a line across the schematic with her finger, tracing the failure cascade. You would want the valve here instead, downstream of the secondary filter housing, where the particulate load has already been reduced. Red is quiet for 3 full seconds. This is, for an astromech running standard processing cycles, a significant pause. That assessment, it says, corresponds to a Level 7 engineering evaluation. You are 5. Leia looks at it. You keep saying that, she says, as though it explains something. Red makes a sound that is not in its standard communication library. It notes the assessment in Leia's educational file, flags it for transmission to Lord Vader's secure data queue, and continues the session. The Fortress knows Vader is coming before any instrument registers his approach. It is not mystical, it is architectural. The automated systems receive his command shuttle's if signal 14 minutes out and begin pre-warming protocols, the hyperbaric suite cycling to his calibrated pressure, the turrets shifting from active patrol to standby, the sub-level lighting adjusting to his preferred operational settings. The whole building leans toward him, the way a compass leans north. In the nursery, Leia feels it differently. She cannot name what she feels. She is 5, and she has no framework for the thing that happens in her chest when she knows he is coming, the low register awareness, like a frequency just beneath hearing, that something significant is in motion. She has felt it her whole life. She has never mentioned it to anyone. She sets down her afternoon reading and waits. The sub-level corridor carries his footsteps differently than the upper levels do. The stone absorbs the impact, but the volcanic substrate beneath transmits it, and she has learned to read the difference between his walking pace and his operational pace. Tonight, it is walking. No injuries. Mission complete. He stops outside her door. The transparent panel between the nursery and the main chamber means she can see his silhouette. She does not look up. She traces a circuit path and waits. "You were gone for 23 days, she says. Red said 2 weeks. "Operations extended," Vader says. "What kind of operations?" "The kind that do not require your analysis." She looks up now. This is the ritual. She waits until he has denied her something before she looks at him directly, because looking first would be a concession she has decided not to make. She studies the angle of his helmet, the set of his shoulders, the slight variance in his respirator rhythm that tells her whether he is tired or undamaged or carrying something that did not go as intended. Tonight, undamaged. Outcome nominal. One variable he did not anticipate resolved. She has read him her entire life through sound and posture. She does not know that this is remarkable. She has no other fathers to compare him to. Her eyes drop to his left boot. "You went to Lothal," she says. "There is volcanic ash on your left boot. It is not Mustafar ash, wrong color. Mustafar ash runs gray-black. That is brown-gray with a clay undertone. Lothal has clay volcanic geology." The respirator marks the silence. "You are correct," Vader says. "Were you successful?" "Yes, good," Leia says. She returns to her schematic. This is what they are. Not warmth. Warmth requires something that neither of them has been taught to produce at each other. What they have is information, and the mutual understanding that information shared accurately constitutes its own form of respect. She gives him her assessments without performing them. He gives her his confirmations without elaborating. In between, the volcanic rumble moves through the floor, and the recycled air moves through the vents, and the respirator marks the seconds. It is, in its own way, a functioning form of love. Neither of them would use that word. Neither of them would be wrong. He leaves when his suit's calibration cycle prompts him toward the hyperbaric suite. He does not say goodnight. She does not expect him to. She wakes at 02:17 local time, with a sharp, short cry, and then nothing. Not loudly. She has never learned to cry loudly, because crying loudly in the fortress produces no result other than DIT-7 arriving to run a medical diagnostic, and Leia has decided she is not interested in being diagnosed. The cry is involuntary. It stops before she is fully conscious, and then she is sitting upright in the dark, breathing carefully. The dream. It comes every few months, with variations she has learned to track. A desert, not Mustafar, something different, dry rather than volcanic, with fine pale sand rather than black basalt. A sky with 2 suns, both yellow, both present simultaneously, painting the desert in flat, merciless light. And a boy. Her age, approximately, running across the sand dunes towards something she cannot see. His arms out for balance, laughing. She does not know him. She does not know what the 2 suns mean. She does not know why her chest does the same thing during the dream that it does when she knows Vader is coming. That low register frequency. That sense of something significant. She presses her fists against her eyes until the image recedes. She does not wake DIT-7. She does not tell Vader in the morning. She files it. She gives it a location in her memory, a specific shelf, a specific order, and she notes 3 characteristics: desert, twin suns, boy, recurring, source unknown. She will return to it when she has more data. Leia lies back down in the dark with the volcanic rumble moving through the floor beneath her. The recycled air pressing gently through the vents, and somewhere beyond the transparent panel, the slow mechanical breathing of the only parent she has ever known. She is asleep again in 4 minutes. The fortress holds them both. The combat deck sits 3 levels above the sublevel nursery, and 1 level below where the carved stone transitions into natural volcanic basalt. The architecture stops, and what remains is the planet itself, its geological noise moving up through the floor in irregular low pulses, something breathing underneath them. The space is 40 meters square. The ceiling clears Vader's helmet by a fraction more than he requires, and a fraction less than makes it comfortable. Whether this is coincidence or his own design, Leia has never asked. She suspects she already knows. She stands in the center of the floor. The practice blade in her hand is deactivated, heavy enough to discourage carelessness, underpowered enough to permit survival. She is 10 years old, She has been holding a blade since she was 8. She is not afraid of it. She is, however, not going to tell him that. A Jedi, Vader says, would begin with breathwork. He is pacing. He does not pace often, the suit's energy systems are calibrated for efficiency, and pacing is inefficient. When he does it, it means he is constructing something, arranging the components of an idea in the correct sequence before presenting them. With meditation, he continues. With the calming of the mind. You will not do this. You will begin by understanding why calm is a liability. Leia considers this, because if you are calm, she says, you are slow. No, he stops. Because calm requires that you have already decided what is happening. The Force does not inform your assumptions. It informs your senses. Assumption and sense are not the same thing. She turns this over. So how do I learn the difference? By being wrong, Vader says, until you are not. He activates the training droid. The Mark II DEET combat unit is faster than her. This is the first thing she learns, and she learns it in the first 4 seconds of the first session, when the droid's strike arc covers the distance between them before she has finished registering that it has moved. The practice blade connects with her left arm. The impact is not soft. She stumbles, catches herself, and the droid resets to its starting position with the mechanical indifference of something that has no investment in the outcome. Vader says nothing from the elevated platform. The second session is worse, because she thinks she has understood the first one. She comes in aggressive, which the droid's Achani combat subroutines are specifically designed to punish. It punishes her 3 times in 45 seconds. The third impact takes her off her feet. The floor of the combat deck is basalt. It is not sympathetic about it. She gets up. The droid resets. Vader says nothing. This is how it goes for 3 weeks. The sound record of those sessions would not be clean. It is the crack of a practice blade connecting with forearm, shoulder, ribs, the specific hollow report of impact on a body that has not yet learned to brace correctly. It is the breath knocked out of her on the bad ones, the involuntary grunt she cannot suppress, and has stopped trying to suppress because suppressing it wastes energy she needs for the next exchange. It is the mechanical hiss of the droid resetting, identical each time, indifferent to how many times it has already done this. She falls. She gets up. The droid resets. Vader watches. He does not offer corrections during sessions. He does not offer anything after them. He watches with the attention of someone collecting data, and when she asks what she is doing wrong. He says she is not yet asking the right question. She spends the first week trying to be faster. She is not faster than a combat-programmed Mark II. This is not a personal failing. No 10-year-old is. She spends the second week trying to read the attack patterns. They are randomized at the subroutine level. She cannot read them. She spends the beginning of the third week trying to fight better. And then, 3 sessions in, she stops. The droid is mid-approach, running its standard opening sequence, and Leia takes 2 steps backward and does not raise her blade. The droid completes the sequence. She is not where the sequence expected her. It recalculates. The recalculation takes 0.4 seconds. She does not use those 0.4 seconds to attack. She uses them to look at the maintenance access panel on the training deck's east wall, which she noticed 6 sessions ago and has been cataloging in the background of every session since. The panel covers the floor junction housing for the deck's primary power routing. She has been counting the droid's attack cycles, not to predict them, but to identify the single window in each cycle where the droid's positional arc brings it within 3 meters of that panel. The window is 0.8 seconds. It occurs in the 4th exchange of every cycle. She has confirmed this across 11 sessions. She waits for the 4th exchange. The droid comes in on its established arc. She steps into it rather than away from it. The droid's strike is calibrated for a retreating target. The blade passes over her shoulder. She is already moving toward the panel. Her hand finds the housing release by feel, because she mapped it with her eyes 6 sessions ago and has not looked directly at it since. The power coupling comes free. The droid's left leg servomotor housing is 2 meters away. The coupling makes contact. The discharge is sharp and bright and violent. The smell of burned circuitry hitting the recycled air in a hard chemical wave, the unit collapsing in a cascade of sparks that dies in stages from the leg joint upward. Then, it is on the floor, and it is very still. Leia straightens. Her hair has come loose. She is breathing hard. She is holding a power coupling. "I win," she says. "You cheated," Vader says. The register of his voice is something she cannot immediately classify. Not anger, not approval, something between the two that she has not encountered from him before and does not yet have a name for. "No," she says. "I changed the parameters. There is a difference." He comes down from the platform. He crosses the training floor and stands before her, enormous and black, the red lenses level with her upturned face, and she meets them the way she has always met them. Directly, without the adjustment, the instinctive repositioning that she has watched fully grown Imperial officers perform in his presence. She has never understood the flinch. He is simply her father. He is mechanical and permanent, and he is simply her father. He looks at the droid on the floor, the sparks cooling, the circuitry that will require significant reconstruction before the unit is operational again. He looks at the power coupling in her hand. He looks at her. "Your saber work," he says, "is adequate. It will improve." He gestures, not at her, at the fallen unit. "But this," he says, "is what you are. This is what you will use." "My mind," Leia says. "Your mind. Everything else is secondary." He turns and walks toward the platform stairwell. She watches him go. She has been tracking his respirator rhythm since she was old enough to track anything, cataloging the specific texture of each state, filing them with the precision of someone who understands that her father communicates almost entirely through sound. Baseline, 14.2 breath cycles per minute. Operational exertion, 16.5. Decision states, 13.8. She registers the number now. 13.4. The breath cycles spacing out by approximately half a second from their baseline, a number she has never recorded before. A state she does not yet have a category for. She files it. She will name it later. Right now the evidence is sufficient. Something in him has responded to what she just did, and the response did not reduce to displeasure. She sets the power coupling on the floor beside the droid's remains. She picks up her practice blade. She begins her cool-down footwork alone in the center of the basalt floor, the volcanic percussion moving up through her feet from whatever the planet is doing underneath them, which is the same thing it is always doing. Burning, the Force lesson, comes 4 days later. Vader arrives at the combat deck with a length of black cloth and holds it out without explanation. She puts it on without asking. The blindfold settles and the training deck becomes texture and sound and the low geological pulse from below. She orients by the proximity of the far wall, the air displacement from the ventilation to her left, the faint thermal variance through the east wall where the lava exterior radiates even through durasteel insulation. She notes these things the way she notes circuit paths, in sequence, without urgency. Then the room fills with moving objects. She registers them before she hears them, a sensation she has no name for, arriving half a second ahead of the auditory input, like knowing a word before it is spoken. "What do you hear?" Vader says. 7 objects in motion, she says. 3 droids, 4 stones. The stones are in a circular pattern, rotating counterclockwise, radius approximately 3 meters from center. 1 droid is stationary to my left, 4 meters out. 1 is moving along the far wall toward the northern corner. 1. She stops. 1 is directly behind me, she says. It has a blade extended. You did not tell me about a blade. No, Vader says. I did not. That was a test. Everything is a test. She turns, still blindfolded, the orientation precise, to face the droid behind her. She does not reach for her practice weapon. She simply turns to face it, so that whatever comes from that direction will find her already looking. Then I would like credit, she says, for noticing before it reached me. Credit noted, Vader says. The volcanic floor sends one long pulse through the basalt, deep and liquid, the planet grinding against itself far below. She keeps the blindfold on. She waits for the next test. The shuttle breaks through the upper cloud layer at 17 Tuffalo standard, and Coruscant opens beneath it like a wound that has never healed and never bothered to. Leia presses her fingertips against the viewport glass, not with emotion, with assessment. The planet is all surface, every kilometer of land buried under 300 levels of construction, every geological feature consumed by what sits on top of it. It is a world that has spent centuries compressing itself into this, the seat of an empire, a city without end, a place where power has been accumulating for so long that the air itself seems dense with it. She is 15. She has spent her entire life on a volcanic rock above a lava river. She does not let the scale of it into her face. "You are counting ships," Vader says. He is behind her, standing, because Vader does not occupy seats the way biological beings do. He occupies spaces, and his reflection is visible in the viewport glass alongside the sky lanes below. "There are a great many of them," she says. "Do not count ships. Count lanes." The flatness of someone delivering operational doctrine verified through decades of evidence. Lanes tell you power structure. The private lanes nearest the palace core are reserved for Senate rank or above. Count who is using them. She counts. 4 seconds of silence. "Grand Moff Tarkin has a lane," she says. "Moff Herod. Admiral Ozzel, a beat. There are 3 shuttles in the restricted zone with no registration markings. Those 3 belong to the ISB," Vader says. "They are always present, always unregistered. This is not a failure of your intelligence. It is a deliberate statement." "What statement?" "That they do not need to tell you where they are." She watches the unregistered shuttles hold their position in the restricted lane, steady, unbothered, announcing themselves through their refusal to announce themselves. "So the unregistered part is the message," she says. "Now you understand Coruscant," Vader says. The shuttle descends. She wore the gray gown once before today, 3 days ago, alone for 4 minutes, to confirm she understood how it moved and what it permitted in terms of range of motion. Then she hung it and did not think about it again until this morning. It is deep gray with structured shoulders, cut in the silhouette of Coruscant court fashion, but stripped of its accumulation of detail. No embroidery, no visible insignia, no ornamentation that signals effort. Vader approved the design. She understands why. In a room full of people wearing their ambitions on their clothing, wearing nothing is its own position. She does not mention that she practiced moving in it. He would approve, and she finds she does not need his approval of every preparation. Only the significant ones. The reception hall of the Imperial Palace carries sound the way expensive rooms carry secrets. Everything travels farther than the speaker intends, arrives at angles no one anticipated, mixes with the ventilation undertone and the percussion of glassware, and the specific click of polished boot heels on polished stone. It is the sound of powerful people performing confidence at each other in a room designed to make confidence feel like its own reward. She walks through the entrance at Vader's right side, not behind him, beside him. She noted the positioning in the shuttle and understood its function immediately. Beside means claimed. Beside means relevant. Beside means the room should already be forming a question before anyone has said a word. This is how Vader operates in social architecture. Not with speech, with geometry. The geometry lands. The reaction is not audible. That is precisely what makes it register. The room does not shift. It absorbs, and then continues, except that every calculation being run by every person in it has just incorporated a new variable. A heavyset man in Moff's uniform approaches from the left. His voice carries the cadence of someone who has not been wrong in a room he controlled in a very long time. "Lord Vader," he says, "I see you have brought a guest." "My ward," Vader says. "Yes, Leia Tarvak, is it?" He says Tarvak with the slight flattening of a man who has looked up the name and found it insufficiently interesting. "The Sir Carpus orphan?" The word orphan arrives with something underneath it. Not cruelty. Moff Havrath is too experienced for visible cruelty. Something more precise, a categorization. A ceiling installed in the phrasing before the conversation has properly begun. Leia speaks before Vader has drawn breath to respond. "Lord Havrath," she says. 4 months of practice in her voice, 4 months of recorded Senate sessions run through her personal terminal late at night, studying the frequency of a particular kind of authority, the kind that does not announce itself before it arrives. "Yes, though I notice you directed that question to the person standing beside me rather than to me directly." Havrath blinks. You assumed I would not speak unless addressed, she says. Her tone remains pleasant throughout. It is a weapon she has discovered works best when it does not look like one. Most people make that assumption about orphans from the Outer Rim. A pause of exactly one heartbeat. Most people make that assumption about me once. The room does not react. The room is too experienced to react. But the sound catches it anyway, the micro-redistribution of weight across the reception floor. The pause in the ambient vocal register that lasts no more than a second and a half. The collective recalibration of a room full of trained political operators performing the specific silence of people who have registered something and are still deciding what it means. Havrath excuses himself within 3 minutes. Vader gave her a data chip, raw intelligence, financial irregularities, private communications, documented indiscretions. Personal facts that have never appeared in any official record. Every significant person in this reception reduced to the specific contents that constitute leverage. She memorized it in 6 hours. She has been sorting the contents into operational categories ever since. 3 Moffs in this room present a structural problem for Vader. They have been cultivating direct relationships with Palpatine's inner circle in ways that, if developed, will create reporting chains that bypass his command entirely. He cannot address them directly. Any action he takes toward a Moff currently positioned in Palpatine's favor requires explanation, and explanation requires revealing the extent of his own surveillance. And that conversation with the Emperor is one Vader has calculated is not yet worth having. Leia addresses it instead. She does not do it dramatically. She does not approach the 3 together. She does not raise her voice or alter her expression or deploy anything that could, by any witness, be described as a confrontation. Over the course of 90 minutes, she drifts through the reception the way guests drift through receptions, pausing at conversations, accepting a glass of something she does not drink, standing near the tall windows where the Coruscant sky lanes pulse in long streams of light. At 3 separate intervals, spaced far enough apart to appear coincidental, she finds herself near each of the 3. The first conversation runs 62 seconds. She raises the subject of Sercarpus agricultural yields, citing 3 figures from 3 specific seasons that she has no official reason to know. The Moff's face does not change. His voice does not change. By the time she moves away, his glass is motionless in his hand. The second runs 48 seconds. She asks after a homeworld she knows he emigrated from and then permanently avoided, specifically about a district he has not returned to in 14 years, and the reason he has not returned, which is sealed in a medical privacy file he paid a considerable sum to have buried. She does not mention the file. She mentions the district. He moves through 3 states in quick succession: confidence, confusion, and then a quality of absolute stillness that has no diplomatic name, but every diplomat in the room would recognize if they were watching, which they are not. The third lasts 29 seconds. She says almost nothing. She offers a name, a single name. A private name that does not appear in any communication between this Moff and anyone alive, and then asks pleasantly how the evening is finding him. He says fine. She says wonderful and walks away. Vader is at her side when she returns to his position. Well executed, he says. 3 words. From him, in that register, the equivalent of anything more effusive from anyone else. Havrath is still a problem, she says. He has nothing I can use yet. He is too careful. He will make a mistake, Vader says. They always do. She looks across the reception, the Moffs in their positions, the ISB officers she can identify by posture even in civilian dress, the entire grammar of power arranged across the hall in a language she is now reading fluently for the first time. Then I will be watching, she says. Around them the reception continues its performance. Crystal strikes crystal. Boot heels read the polished floor. The ventilation moves recycled air through the palatial space in long, invisible cycles. And underneath all of it, the respirator. Metronomic. Permanent. Completely out of place in this palace of glass and careful performance. Completely in command of it. The crystal comes from a dismantled Inquisitor saber. Vader brought it to her workshop 3 weeks ago, the weapon disassembled on a metal tray, each component separated and labeled with the precision of someone who performs autopsies on dead things as a matter of professional habit. The crystal lay at the center of the tray inside a transparisteel containment sleeve. Even through the sleeve she could feel it, not warmth, not cold, something with direction, something that knew which way was toward her and which way was away. She did not touch it that day. She looked at it for 6 minutes and covered it with a cloth and went back to her evening work. The following 3 weeks she spent reading everything available on Kyber crystal alignment. Not in any Jedi archive, those were inaccessible and she would not have used them if they weren't, but in recovered technical documentation from Inquisitor training protocols in Vader's private files, and in 3 fragmentary texts on Sith methodology she accessed, without asking his permission. He did not mention that she had accessed them. She interpreted this as permission after the fact. She learned what she needed to know. The crystal is bled. A previous owner, the Inquisitor whose saber this was, whose name she did not research because it was not operationally relevant, poured pain into it until it cracked along its internal fault lines and turned red. This is what Sith do to Kyber crystals. They torture them into alignment. The crystal does not accept this passively. It resists, then it surrenders, and what remains after the surrender is a red blade and something in the crystal that the technical documentation described, without elaboration, as permanent distress. She held the crystal without its sleeve on the 14th day and found this accurate. She begins the construction at 1600. The workshop carries the organization of someone who processes the world through its infrastructure. Component trays arranged by function. Precision tools ranked by frequency of use. Schematic printouts on the walls annotated until the original lines are nearly invisible beneath her corrections. She suspends the crystal in a force cradle above the work table. She is not yet fully consistent with force cradles. The technique requires sustained attention she can maintain for approximately 40 minutes before it costs her. But this is not an occasion for inconsistency, so she maintains it. Her hands move through the component assembly with the certainty of someone who has mapped this process in theory until the theory has worn grooves into thinking. She talks to herself throughout. This is how she thinks. Emitter matrix seats here, she says, to the work, to no one. Then the power cell, then the cycling field amplifier. No, the amplifier goes after the primary housing is closed. Otherwise the crystal cannot seat properly against the field when the housing, she adjusts, corrects, continues. There, now, the housing. Now, the crystal. The crystal descends from the cradle into the primary housing. The moment of contact is audible. Not a click, not a mechanical registration of components finding their tolerance. Something organic. A frequency shift downward in the crystal's baseline hum. The sound of something settling into a space and finding it wrong. She does not stop. I know, she says quietly. It is not quite right yet. Give me time. 3 hours pass. She works through them without tracking them, the way she works through most things, by entering the problem far enough that the part of her mind monitoring elapsed time goes quiet. The volcanic floor sends its intermittent pulses up through the chair legs and along her spine, and she does not register them as anything other than the planet conducting its own business. She reaches the crystal alignment at hour 4. This is the step the technical documentation called the critical junction, where the Force user must impose their alignment on the crystal, pouring pain and rage into the fault lines until the crystal commits to red, or, in the theoretical alternative she found in the fragmentary Sith text, where a user of sufficient light-side connection runs purification current through a bled crystal until the red bleeds out and what remains is white. She knows what she is before she begins. She has always known. She is neither of these things, which means this step will either fail or produce something that has no precedent in the documentation she has read. She reaches into the crystal with the Force. The crystal reaches back. Not with acceptance, with recognition. 2 incomplete things, finding each other's frequency in the dark. She pushes her alignment into it. Not rage, she does not have the uncontrolled quality of rage that originally bled this crystal, but something colder and more deliberate, something that has been building since she was 5 years old and first understood that she lived on the most hostile surface in the outer rim, and it had not managed to kill her yet. She pushes that in. The crystal resists. She pushes harder. The red does not leave. It does not deepen either. You do not want to be red, she says at hour 9. Her voice is quieter than it has been all day, carrying something she would not call pleading and technically isn't. I can feel that. You do not want to be red. So meet me halfway. The crystal holds silence for 11 seconds. Then, the frequency shifts. Upward, not resolution, a question. The acoustic equivalent of something in the dark lifting its head. There you are, she says. She ignites it for the first time at 030 local time. The sound is wrong, not broken, wrong the way a word spoken simultaneously in two voices is wrong, technically coherent and immediately unsettling. The blade starts on 2 frequencies and resolves into one, imperfectly, the resolution audible as a slight instability at the outer edge of the plasma field. The color is white with rose underneath it, and at the core, visible when the blade is at full extension, when the light catches it from a specific angle, a red ghost that pulses like a heartbeat. Something still in there that has not finished deciding. She holds it. The pink-white light covers her face. She is 16 years old, and she has just built something that has never existed before. And she knows this, and what she feels about it is not pride, it is the specific satisfaction of a problem that has resolved correctly after sufficient work. The force pulse from the blade's activation moves outward through the workshop walls, through the Asalamiri suppression field. She feels it go, and she knows immediately what that means. Vader is on his feet before the echo fades. She hears him through the stone. His movement has a specific percussion when he is moving fast toward disturbance rather than toward threat. And she has had 16 years to learn the difference. The workshop door opens without a hand touching it. He stands in the frame. The red lenses take in the blade. That crystal was not fully bled, he says. I know, she says. It is also not purified. I know. He crosses the workshop. He stands before her, the blade between them. The white-pink light throwing shadows that shift with the plasma fluctuation, and he studies it with the attention he reserves for things that require genuine assessment rather than mere acknowledgement. What color would you call that, he says. I would call it mine, she says. The respirator marks the silence. The inquisitors, he says, will recognize an incomplete purification. They will know it is not a dark blade. Then we do not let them see it. And when they do, she deactivates the blade. The workshop returns to standard white lighting. The schematic printouts reassert themselves on the walls. She sets the saber on the workbench with the same precision she used to set down a power coupling on the combat deck floor 6 years ago. When they do, she says, they will not be alive long enough to report it. He says nothing. He does not need to. 2 days later, the fifth brother comes to Mustafar. He arrives in a tie advanced without advance notice, which is itself data. The Inquisitorius does not come to Vader's ground uninvited, except when it carries something it does not want transmitted. Vader meets him in the upper facility. Leia is in the sub-levels, the Asalamiri field at full engagement, every force signature in the lower fortress locked to levels that read on external sensors as geological interference. She cannot hear the conversation. She sits in her workshop with the saber in its compartment and reads the delay in Vader's return like a document. In the upper level, the fifth brother delivers his physical report, data card pressed into hand, the specific theater of information that requires a face in the room to register. Then he mentions, in the register of someone presenting a curiosity rather than an accusation, that the Inquisitorius long-range array has been tracking an intermittent force-sensitive signature in the Mustafar system itself. Low, inconsistent, appearing and disappearing in patterns that suggest active suppression rather than natural variance. He thought Lord Vader should be informed. I am already aware, Vader says. The fifth brother does not expect confirmation. The register of his voice shifts 2 notes. You are aware. I am conducting an experiment, Vader says. It does not concern the Inquisitorius. You have no jurisdiction in Mustafar system operations without my direct authorization. Of course, my lord. I only thought you are paid to hunt Jedi, Vader says. Not to think in my presence. Return to Nur. The fifth brother returns to Nur. Vader comes back to the sub-level corridor and stops outside Leia's door. He does not enter. She looks up from her workbench and reads the set of his helmet, the angle she has catalogued over 16 years, as a variable I have not fully resolved. "The clock has started," she says. "Yes," he says. "It has." She looks at the compartment where the saber sits. She looks back at him. "Then we had better be ready," she says. The volcanic floor sends one long pulse through the basalt beneath them, deep and liquid and indifferent to clocks, to inquisitors, to the specific shape of the trouble now moving toward this fortress from a moon called Nur that orbits this same violent planet. She opens the compartment. She picks up the saber. She begins her footwork drills alone in the workshop, the blade unlit, her hands memorizing the weight of something she built from the wreckage of someone else's darkness. Something that, against all documented precedent, decided to meet her halfway. The arbitration is never quiet. This is one of the first things she learned when she began traveling aboard it 3 months ago, that a vessel of this scale produces a continuous sonic environment that the crew stops consciously registering within a week of assignment. The engines vibrate at a frequency below standard hearing threshold, but the bones register it. The ductwork carries recycled air through channels broad enough to walk upright in, and the air makes a sound moving through them, not wind, something more institutional, the pressurized breath of a machine maintaining conditions for human life in deep space. Metal on metal percussion from the maintenance decks 3 levels below. Intercom fragments, distant, clipped to operational brevity. The Star Destroyer does not sleep. It continues. She has learned to work inside it the way she learned to work inside the fortress, by treating ambient noise as structural rather than intrusive, the way a building treats its own foundation. She is in the officer quarters Vader maintains for her use. They are spare, bunk, desk, terminal, a narrow viewport. The quarters of a person who uses space rather than occupies it. She has been working through intelligence reports for 4 hours when it happens. It is not dramatic. She wants to be precise about this. Afterward, when she reviews the sequence, it is not a vision, not a flash of imagery, nothing that could be called a waking dream. It is a frequency. Specifically, a harmonic in the force she has heard before. She sits very still for approximately 4 minutes. She does not close the intelligence file. She does not reach for anything. She runs the frequency through her memory with the same methodology she applies to everything, comparing it against known references, eliminating non-matches, narrowing the field. The dream. She has been having it since she was 5 years old, with variations she has catalogued across a decade. A desert with pale sand, twin suns, a boy her own age running, laughing, the quality of light flat and merciless and ancient. She has never been able to locate the dream because it arrived without geographic data, without coordinates, without anything that could be translated into a navigation chart. But this time the frequency has a direction. She extends her force sense outward along that direction, careful, deliberate, the way Vader taught her in the blindfold exercises. Not grasping. Tracing, the frequency holds steady somewhere beyond the ship's hull, beyond the star lanes, in a specific bearing that her training has given her enough precision to resolve into a general region of space. Outer rim. Dry, ancient, very old light. She holds the direction in her awareness and begins the analytical work alongside it. She pulls up navigational charts and cross-references what she can feel in the Force against what she can see on the screen. Binary star configurations in the outer rim. Desert-classified worlds. Systems with minimal Imperial garrison presence, the kind of places where someone might choose to hide a child. She is 3 queries into the elimination process when the Force narrows it further on its own. She stops. Her finger is already over the screen. She is already looking at the right system. She looks at the name for a long time. Tatooine. She does not tell Vader. This is the first truly significant decision she makes on her own, and she makes it in under 30 seconds, approximately how long it takes her to model the available options and reach the only viable conclusion. Vader would either try to claim the boy, a complication the situation does not need, or identify him as a threat and remove the complication entirely. Neither of these outcomes is acceptable. Neither of these outcomes is something she is willing to permit. She tells Vader she wants a detour to investigate a rebel cell operating out of Mos Eisley. This is not a fabrication. The rebel cell is real. She has known about it for 3 weeks, and has been holding it precisely for a moment when she needs a pretext that Vader will evaluate as legitimate intelligence work. His approval takes 4 minutes. He sees no red flag, because there is no red flag visible. The detour is operationally sound. The fact that she has a second objective is not visible in any part of her presentation. The arbitration adjusts course. From orbit, Tatooine looks like the inside of a sun. The surface reflects light with the flat indifference of a world that has never developed the atmospheric complexity to filter it. She works alone. She has spent her whole life learning to feel the Force as information, shapes and distances and qualities she can read the way other people read instrument panels. In the officer quarters, with the engine vibration in her bones and the recycled air moving through the ductwork above, she sits with her eyes closed and extends her awareness toward the planet's surface below. Not searching broadly. Following the thread the frequency has already given her. It takes 2 hours. The signature is in the Junland wastes, small, intermittent, flaring in surges that have no consistent interval. She holds it in her awareness long enough to build a profile. The surges correlate, in their timing and texture, with someone working, hands on machinery. The specific quality of a Force connection that runs through tools and equipment rather than combat or meditation. Someone whose gift moves through the things they build and fix. Someone who does not know what they are. Someone approximately her age. She supplements the Force reading with the ship's surface mapping array, atmospheric density, life sign clusters, terrain analysis. Not Force detection. The instruments confirm what she has already found through other means. The grid reference narrows to a moisture farm in the Jundland wastes. She cross-references the farm's registration data with land use records, confirms it is occupied, confirms its location matches the Force thread she has been following since the ship entered orbit. She has him. She sits in front of the terminal for a long time without recording anything. Then she activates her personal log, the encrypted partition she maintains on a dedicated datapad that has never been networked to any Imperial system. Force-sensitive individual, she says. Her voice is the voice she uses when she is thinking rather than performing thinking, quieter, more precise. The annotations she makes on a schematic before anyone else is awake. Age approximately 17. Tatooine grid reference 77 Genth. Signature characteristics, untrained, high potential, intermittent surges consistent with mechanical aptitude. Probably works with farm equipment and does not know why the machines respond to him better than they should. She pauses. The Star Destroyer's engine vibration moves through the floor and into the chair and along her spine. Through the narrow viewport at the room's edge, Tatooine is a tan crescent below. The harmonic signature, she says, matches the one I have been tracking since I was 5 years old. Another pause, long enough that the log would record several seconds of background ship noise and nothing else. He is my brother, she says. The wind, she can barely hear it, just the suggestion of planetary wind moving across a desert surface, transmitted through the hull as vibration rather than sound, pushes against the underside of the ship. I am not reporting this, she says. She closes the log. She does not go down to the surface. She models this option across a long sleepless night, lying in the bunk with the engine vibration in her bones and the recycled air moving through the ductwork above her and the distant intercom fragments from the night watch. She arrives at the same conclusion from 12 different angles. Going down to the surface accomplishes nothing that can be operationally justified, and risks everything that cannot be operationally replaced. She does not know what she would say to him. She finds for the first time in her operational life that she has no prepared language for a situation. This is itself data. She does not tell Vader. She has already committed to this. She does not tell anyone else. Because there is no one else in her life in whom she trusts this category of information. She files his coordinates in the encrypted partition. She gives him a designation. Ghost. She stares at the designation for a moment. Then, she leaves it. Then, and this is the part she will not fully understand until later, when she reviews the decision sequence and finds this step appearing, before she has any conscious memory of deciding to take it, she opens a secondary interface and pulls up the patrol routes of the 2 Imperial garrison satellites assigned to the Tatooine sector. Standard routes. Overlapping coverage in 40-minute cycles. The Junland Wastes region falls within standard scan parameters twice per cycle. She makes 2 adjustments. Small ones, the kind that accumulate through legitimate navigation variance over weeks of operation, the kind a garrison maintenance officer would attribute to atmospheric drag correction. She shifts the orbital inclination of each satellite by a margin so slight it requires 3 decimal places to express. She maps the new coverage pattern. A blind spot. Approximately 40 kilometers in diameter, centered on grid reference 77 Genth, the garrison will not notice for months. If ever. He will never know it is there. She closes the interface. She looks at the ceiling of the officer quarters with its standard Imperial geometry, the specific gray of a surface designed to be functional rather than looked at, and she calculates, in the manner she calculates everything, what the next required action is. There is none. She has done what can be done from here. He is protected from casual discovery. He is documented in a record no one else can access. He is, to every system she can reach from this ship, invisible. She has given her brother a security perimeter without introducing herself. Without confirming the connection through any means other than a frequency she has been carrying since she was 5 years old, and her own force reading of what that frequency means. And what her analytical work confirmed about it. The engine vibration moves through the bunk frame and along her spine, and the recycled air moves through the ductwork, and somewhere below, through the hull, through the vacuum, through the atmosphere of a desert world with 2 suns, a boy her own age is sleeping on grid reference 77 Genth, completely unaware. She sleeps in 4-hour intervals, as she always does. In the morning she files a report on the Mos Eisley rebel cell, thorough, accurate, a document that will result in 3 arrests and 2 asset recruitments, because she does not do things incompletely, and she does not mention Tatooine in anything other than a routing context for the rest of the arbitration's transit. She does not say his name to anyone. She carries it the way she has always carried everything that matters, filed precisely, returned to regularly, held in a partition where no one else has clearance, waiting for the moment when there is something she can do with it that will not cost him everything he does not yet know he has. The hyperbaric suite is the only room in the fortress where Vader removes his helmet. Not regularly. Not comfortably. But the suit's medical systems require full atmospheric recalibration at intervals she learned to identify by the time she was 9, and the calibration cannot be performed with the helmet sealed, and so there are windows, carefully bounded, quietly scheduled, where he retreats to the suite's pressurized environment and becomes, for a short and specific time, the man the suit is keeping alive rather than the man the suit has become. She has seen his face. She knows better than to speak about it. She is standing in the doorway when he calls her in, 3 days before the Coruscant departure. The suite's internal atmosphere is pressurized to its hyperbaric calibration. The air in here is different, denser, the humidity controlled to a level the rest of the fortress never reaches. The hum of the atmospheric management system is the only ambient noise. No volcanic percussion. No ductwork. Just the soft mechanical precision of a room designed to sustain something that should not, by any reasonable medical assessment, still be alive. He is in his alcove. The helmet sits beside him. In the low light she can see the shape of his face, the burns, the damaged architecture of someone who has been rebuilt rather than healed. She has looked at this face for 18 years, and she has never permitted herself to react to it. He breathes. Without the respirator, the sound of it is labor, audible effort, the specific quality of damaged lungs processing air that is barely adequate for them, lower than the respirator's modulation. More human, more broken. The Emperor, he says, has requested your presence. Without mechanical amplification, his voice is rougher, quieter, the voice of a man who has been speaking through a machine for so long that without it, he sounds like an earlier draft of himself. She waits. He suspects, Vader says. He does not know. There is a difference, and you must maintain that difference for the duration of the audience. What does he suspect? that you are more than you appear. He does not yet know what more means in your case. She looks at him. What does he want me to appear to be? Exactly what you are documented as. A ward. An intelligent one, he will expect that, given who raised you. But not force-sensitive, not strategic, not a threat. So I need to be smart enough to impress him without being smart enough to make him nervous. He breathes. In the suite without the respirator's rhythm, his breathing sounds like weather, irregular, working, carrying weight. That is the narrowest corridor you will ever have to navigate. She is preparing to leave, to return to her quarters and begin the operational work of preparing for the audience, when he speaks again. The tone is different. Not instruction, not operational briefing. Something that exists between warning and preparation, and something older than either, something she does not have a precise category for yet. He will test you without telling you he is testing you. He will say things that are not what they appear to be. Do not show him that you know this. She looks at him carefully. How will I know when the test is happening? The damaged lungs work. The air moves through them with effort. When he is being kind, Vader says. The throne room of the Imperial Palace is built to a scale that has nothing to do with function. She understands this the moment the doors open. The space is not designed to hold meetings. It is designed to hold a specific quality of experience in the people who enter it. The experience of being very small in the presence of something very old and very certain of itself. The ceiling recedes into a maintained dimness. The floor is polished to a reflectivity that doubles the apparent height of every person crossing it. Her footsteps travel too far. The acoustic properties of the room were engineered to amplify the sound of approach, which means every step announces itself before the person taking it has arrived. Through the viewports along the far wall, Coruscant far below, and the wind, audible even at this altitude, moving across the exterior of the tower in a low sustained moan. She walks at the pace of someone mildly awed and completely controlled. This is not her natural pace. That is the point. Palpatine is in his throne. He is smaller than she expected. She registers this as data rather than relief. Small does not mean limited. Small means everything he has built fits inside a frame that does not announce itself, which is considerably more dangerous than the alternative. He rises when she enters. Deliberate. She files it. "My dear child," he says. His voice is what the room has been waiting for. Aged silk, smooth, warm, carrying a richness that makes every word sound considered and personally meant. This is the voice of a man who has been listened to for so long that he has learned to make listening feel like a gift he is giving rather than a resource he is extracting. "I have heard so much about you. Come sit, tell me about Mustafar." A pause containing something structurally identical to grandfatherly warmth. "Tell me what it was like to grow up in such a unique environment." She sits. She arranges her face into the expression of someone who has been asked a question she finds unexpectedly touching. She begins to talk. She tells him about the volcanic view from the upper levels. She describes it as beautiful, specifically, and lets a quality of quiet wonder into her voice that is not technically dishonest, because she has found the lava rivers beautiful, in the sense that she has found all powerful and indifferent things beautiful. She describes her studies with a self-deprecating precision that presents her engineering work as the passion of a clever girl rather than the systematic development of an operational toolkit. She is generous with detail, the droid's teaching methods, the technical exercises, the specific satisfaction of a schematic that resolves cleanly. While she talks, she reads him. He is not listening the way people listen when they are interested. He is listening the way people listen when they are measuring, the angle of his attention shifting subtly when she mentions anything technical, the quality of his stillness changing by a degree she has to work to detect when she mentions the force sensitivity calibrations used in her early education droids. 3 times in the first 6 minutes he returns to the subject of her pattern recognition abilities, framing it each time as admiration. The admiration is a probe. She lets it land as admiration. "Darth Vader tells me you have an exceptional mind," Palpatine says. "Perhaps exceptional enough for Imperial intelligence." She laughs. It is the laugh of a girl who is genuinely flattered and slightly overwhelmed, calibrated to land at precisely the pitch of someone who has not spent 3 months mentally preparing for this exact moment. "Your Majesty?" "I'm afraid I'd be a disappointment," she says. "I'm good with technical puzzles. Politics and intelligence work seem far more complicated than engineering schematics." The smile enters his voice before it reaches anything visible. How refreshing. A young person who understands their own limitations. Here, just here, measured to the fraction, she lets one true thing surface. Not performed, not calibrated. Simply allowed to pass through the careful architecture of her presentation, the way a frequency passes through a suppression field when the source is strong enough. "I've found," she says, "that it's the limitations I can't see that are most dangerous." Palpatine is still for a moment. She does not look at him during the moment. She looks at her hands in her lap, at the reflective floor, at the middle distance, the practiced visual grammar of modest self-reflection. She lets him look at her while she is looking at nothing. He is deciding, she knows, whether this is the statement of someone very clever who has accidentally revealed depth, or the statement of someone who has calculated exactly how deep to appear. She has calibrated it to read as the former. Whether he accepts the calibration is the question she will not have an answer to until she is out of this room and still breathing. "Well said," he says at last. "You will go far, my dear. Vader has done well by you. He has been very generous, Your Majesty," she says. She exits the throne room with her spine exactly straight, and her hands settled in her lap, and the expression of someone who has been gratified by an imperial audience, and is still processing the scale of the space. She holds all of this until she is in the corridor, and the throne room doors have closed behind her, and she has taken 3 steps along the polished floor toward the lift. Then she takes one breath that is not performed, and does nothing with her face for exactly 4 seconds. Then she continues walking. In the shuttle, Vader is already waiting. He stands rather than sits. The respirator has resumed its metronomic rhythm, the helmet back on, Darth Vader reassembled, and the sound of it fills the small cabin with its familiar count. She takes the seat across from him. "Well?" he says. "He suspects the Force, not the lineage. I gave him clever but limited. He bought it." "You are certain?" "No," she says. "I am approximately 80% certain, and given that I am still breathing, that seems adequate." "He will not stop watching," Vader says. "I know. We have time. Not much." He looks at her for a long moment. The respirator marks the seconds between them. "What did he say to you," Vader says, "that will not appear in the summary you will write?" She looks at him. She considers, not whether to tell him, but how to frame it with accuracy. "He asked whether I ever sensed things other people didn't," she says. "He called it intuition. He said it very gently, as if it were a compliment." "And you said?" "I told him I read a great deal of technical literature and it makes patterns easy to spot." A pause of 1 second. Then I laughed. "Good," Vader says. The shuttle lifts from the palace platform. Below them, Coruscant fills the viewport. Its millions of lights running in every direction to every horizon. An entire civilization arranged in layers of obedience around the building they have just left. She looks at it for 1 moment. Then she opens her datapad and begins drafting the summary. The wind is the first thing. Cloud City exists at the specific altitude where Bespin's atmosphere transitions from breathable to not, a narrow band of acceptable pressure and temperature that the city's engineers have been exploiting for decades. At this altitude, wind is not weather. It is structural. It moves through the covered walkways and open promenades with the consistency of a river, and the city's architecture acknowledges it. The walkways carry a specific echo quality because they are open on 3 sides to a sky that goes down for thousands of kilometers before it becomes something other than sky. She steps off the transport, and the wind takes her hair immediately. She does not fix it. She files the sensation alongside the rest of the sensory data she has been collecting since they broke atmosphere. The specific pitch of the repulsor lift arrays beneath the city's platforms, audible as a very low thrum through the decking, the bite of the air at this altitude, cold in a way that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with elevation. She has spent 18 years on a volcanic rock. The cold is new. She catalogs it and moves. The Tabana gas processing facility on level 10 does not cater to investors. The air inside carries the chemical undertone of compressed gas and industrial lubricant. The lighting is functional rather than flattering. The man waiting at the back table looks like someone who arrived early specifically to sit with his back to the wall. She crosses to the table and sits across from him. He looks at her the way people look at things that require rapid recalculation, starting from one assumption, abandoning it mid-process, arriving somewhere else. "You're not what I expected," he says. "I'm told that's useful," she says. "The guy who set this up said you're with Vader's office. I'm Lord Vader's ward." He considers this. His eyes move across her. No insignia, no uniform, nothing that places her in any organizational chart he can access. "Right, so you're not Imperial. I'm sitting in a gas processing facility on the wrong level of Cloud City asking you specifically," she says. That should answer the question. Han Solo is, she has established through 3 weeks of background research, a man who trusts his own instincts above most other data sources. His instincts are currently registering something he has not previously encountered in a professional context, and his face is doing the specific work of someone who has decided not to show that he is not certain what it is. "What kind of logistics?" he says. "The kind where you move things that don't officially exist, on routes that aren't in Imperial navigation records, without anyone on either end being entirely sure who the cargo belongs to." So, he settles back slightly. "Black market cargo running. I prefer supply chain management for organizations that value discretion." A pause. Then, because he cannot entirely suppress it even when he is trying to, which she noted in his file and is now confirming in person, the humor surfaces in his voice like a reflex. "Right, and what does this discretion-valued organization pay?" "Double your current rate," she says. "Consistent work, no Imperial entanglement for you or your ship, unless you create it yourself. And if I need to know who I'm actually working for?" "Eventually, you will," she says. "Not yet." He looks at her for a long moment. She looks back. She does not fill the silence with anything, because silence is not a problem she needs to solve. He says yes. She knows before he says it that he will, not because the money is good, though it is, but because he is sitting across from someone who has clearly thought through consequences he has not finished identifying yet, and there is a specific kind of person who finds that quality compelling despite all practical evidence that it should be alarming. She meets 3 more contacts before she leaves Cloud City. None of them are as useful as Han Solo. None of them know he exists. Nar Shaddaa is the opposite of everything Cloud City is. Where Cloud City is built for altitude and light and the specific elegance of something that has figured out how to float, Nar Shaddaa is built for density, layer upon layer of construction that stopped worrying about its own foundation centuries ago. The sound here comes in layers, crowd noise in at least 12 species vocal registers simultaneously, the competing hum of neon lighting in dozens of overlapping frequencies, the background industrial processing of a city that has so much waste output, it sounds like something enormous digesting itself deep below the walkways. She has been here 4 hours when Lando Calrissian arrives at the meeting. He arrives exactly on time. She notes this: most people who want to establish superiority in a meeting arrive late. He is not interested in that particular performance. He is interested in her, which is a different thing entirely and more useful. "Lord Vader's ward," he says, taking the seat across from her with the ease of a man who finds every seat comfortable, because comfort is a decision he made about himself a long time ago. "I've been curious about you since Lord Vader's last communication suggested very obliquely that I should make myself available." She keeps her face neutral while she files this. "Vader moved pieces on this board without telling her. This is information about both of them." "He suggested that?" she says. "He said, and I'm quoting precisely, 'You may find it useful to be cooperative with my ward's business interests.'" Lando's expression carries the specific warmth of someone who genuinely enjoys the texture of a situation without needing it to resolve in any particular direction. From Lord Vader, that's practically a glowing endorsement. "Then let's discuss business interests," she says. She is direct with Lando in a way she was not with Han. Lando already knows too much, who she is connected to, what that connection implies, the general operational geography of the situation. Treating directness as a vulnerability with someone holding this much context would itself be the vulnerability. She tells him she is building a parallel power structure. Not rebel, not imperial. A third option, constructed in the gap between the two where neither side is currently looking. She needs Cloud City as a staging facility. She will provide ISP protection. She has 3 ISP officers who currently route their reports through her before they go up the chain, in exchange for logistical access and the cover of his legitimate operation. "You're 18, he says. 19 in 2 months, and you're proposing what is essentially a private empire. I'm proposing a mutual arrangement that keeps both of us operational when the current arrangement inevitably collapses." Lando's expression does not change, but something behind it does, a recalibration, the particular attentiveness of someone who has just heard a sentence he was not prepared for and is deciding whether to be impressed or alarmed, and finding that the two are not mutually exclusive. "You think the empire collapses," he says. "I think everything collapses eventually," she says. "The question is whether you want to be inside it when it does, or have a lifeboat ready." The diplomatic smile, the one he arrived with, warm and genuine and telling her absolutely nothing, gives way to something smaller. The real one. It reaches his eyes in a way the other one was never designed to. It is the expression of a man who has just encountered something that meets his actual standard rather than the one he performs. "How soon?" Lando says. "Do you need Cloud City?" By the time she is 19, the inventory reads as follows. 12 disillusioned Imperial officers recruited across 8 months through varying combinations of documented leverage, financial incentive, and what she has privately categorized as ideological persuasion, the specific type that works on people who have been telling themselves for years that they serve the Empire because the alternative is worse, and who require only the presentation of an actual alternative to choose it. 2 of the 12 hold positions in Logistics Command, controlling supply route authorization for 3 sectors. 3 sit in Communications, giving her access to encrypted Imperial traffic before it reaches its intended recipients. 1 is embedded in the ISB itself, which is worth more than the other 11 combined. 6 carry fleet operational clearances that provide advance notice of military movements across the Outer Rim. Han Solo covers 14 systems. His contact network in the underworld is worth, she has assessed through 6 months of cross-referencing, approximately 3 times the value of his direct smuggling operation. It is the difference between a supply route and an intelligence substrate. He does not know she has assessed this. He does not need to. Lando Calrissian provides a legitimate shell, logistical infrastructure, and a staging facility that sits at the intersection of multiple supply lanes and reports to no Imperial authority she has not already compromised. He knows this about the ISB officers. She told him because he would have deduced it, and she finds it more efficient to give people information they will reach anyway. Hidden financial accounts. Assembled through a process of budgetary manipulation so incremental that the discrepancies have been attributed to rounding errors in 3 separate Imperial administrative departments, total enough credit to fund a small fleet and sustain it for 14 months of active operation. An intelligence library covering operational dossiers on every significant political and military figure in the Imperial hierarchy, built from a combination of her own research across 3 years of court attendance, the 12 officers' access, and the ISB intercepts she has been quietly archiving since the night after the Coruscant reception when she decided she would eventually need everything. She has called it the Shadow Network in her private logs for 4 months. Vader does not know it exists. The Emperor does not know it exists. Han Solo knows his segment. Lando Calrissian knows his. The 12 officers know their own access, and nothing beyond it. None of them know what the full picture looks like from the position she occupies at its center, which is the only position from which the full picture is visible, which is how she intends to keep it. She is 19 years old. She is running a sovereign intelligence agency from the operational blind spots of the most powerful government in galactic history, funded by that government's own misallocated credits, staffed by that government's own disaffected personnel, and staged from a facility that government's own intelligence bureau believes it has completely mapped. She closes the inventory log. She encrypts it behind 3 separate authentication layers. She opens the next file on the list. There is always a next file. She gets back to work. Palpatine sits completely still for 6 minutes. This is not his normal stillness, the cultivated repose of a man who has learned to make stillness into a performance of power. This is a different quality. The intelligence report is spread across his desk display, and he is reading it not as a document, but as a structural revision of everything he believed he understood about Darth Vader. A daughter. Raised in secret on Mustafar. Force-sensitive. Trained, running an unauthorized intelligence network that has been operating for at least 8 months. And the girl sat in this room 8 months ago and looked at him with those dark, careful eyes and told him she was good at technical puzzles. He is not angry. Anger is for people who are surprised, and what he feels is not surprise so much as a specific, cold recalibration of the board. "Prepare the 5-0 first," he says to his aide. His voice is very quiet. A pause, deliberate, weighted, Vader's own legion. Let him understand what is being taken from him. The aide does not respond to this. He writes it down. "I want a full assault package for Mustafar. I want the casualty profile to read as an accident, structural failure, volcanic event. Something geological. And Lord Vader, Your Majesty?" Another pause. The answer lives in the pause. Lord Vader, he says, is free to die defending whatever he was protecting. The message arrives on a channel that has never carried anything before. 6 words. The channel has been dormant for 8 months, established and held in reserve for exactly this. When the signal comes through, she is at a terminal in her Coruscant staging apartment, and she reads it in the half-second it takes for her eyes to complete the line. 5-0 first Mustafar asset burn. She calculates. 37 minutes to the hyperspace window. She does not contact Han. She does not activate any Shadow Network asset. She does not send anyone. She takes a personal shuttle from the Coruscant upper docking ring, and she sends Vader a single uncoded transmission before she breaks atmosphere. "They're coming. 40 minutes. Get below." His response arrives 6 seconds later. A single confirmation character. He was already preparing. She registers this, that he felt the decision before it became operational. That Palpatine's planning carries force weight that Vader has learned to read over decades. She files it and focuses on the flight. She arrives at the fortress 18 minutes before the first Imperial atmospheric fighter does. The 5-0 first comes in 3 layers. The first layer is sound before it is anything else. The specific whine of TIE fighters in volcanic atmosphere. Different from their signature in space, lower and more turbulent, resonating against the canyon walls and the cliff face above the lava river in ways that make the source difficult to locate. The fortress automated turrets engage immediately. The exchanges produce a percussion that travels through the basalt of the cliff itself, felt through the soles of boots, before it is heard through the air. Vader's automated systems handle the first layer. The second layer is different. Boots on basalt, dozens of them, then hundreds. The specific heavy percussion of armored infantry moving across volcanic rock with at ST support, each walker leg strike landing like a hammer dropped from height. The ground assault comes around the cliff face from the north approach. The direction the fortress's external sightlines are weakest, which tells her that someone with genuine tactical intelligence was involved in the planning. Vader meets the ground assault personally. She does not see this. She is already inside, moving through the sublevels, but she hears it through the fortress walls and she knows it by its sound, the snap hiss of his red blade activating. And then the sustained percussion of combat that is entirely one-sided, heavy impacts, deflected blaster fire, the specific crack of bolts redirected into durasteel and stone rather than absorbed by armor. The force working as blunt instrument, which has a sound too, the sudden relocation of large objects, the compression wave of something moving too fast for its mass, the abrupt ending of mechanical systems that were operational 1 second and are not the next. He walks toward them. She has never seen him fight, but she knows this about him without needing to. These are his soldiers, she knows it, and somewhere behind the helmet, he knows it too. The 5-0 first, the legion that bore his name across 20 years of Imperial campaigns, now carrying orders that end at his death. Palpatine chose them deliberately. The choice was a message. Vader's response is its own message, delivered one deflected blaster bolt at a time. The third layer comes through the lower access tunnels on the eastern cliff face. She is already positioned. 3 Inquisitors, she identified them from the shuttle on approach, reading the TIE configuration, which the Inquisitorius does not vary, moving into the sub-level corridors in standard entry formation. Twin blades spun down to conserve power in the narrow spaces. She knows these corridors. She has known them for 19 years. She has mapped every maintenance access, every pressure junction, every structural gap where the carved stone meets the original volcanic rock. She routes the plasma conduit at Junction 7 before they reach it. The corridor fills with superheated gas in 4 seconds. Not targeted, environmental, filling the space the way gas fills any space, without preference. The formation breaks. 2 Inquisitors pull back, the unnamed one, the newest, the most aggressive. The one who has been trying to prove something since before this assault began, does not pull back. He leaps the conduit junction. She cycles the blast door at the top of his arc. The sound of the mechanism is very brief. Then there is no unnamed Inquisitor. The 7th sister does not react to this with anything visible. She is too experienced for visible reactions. She enters the sub-level corridors at a different angle with the 5th brother taking the parallel passage, and Leia lets her come, moving ahead of her through 3 corridors, not running, positioning, leading her through the specific route that ends in the loading chamber off the secondary cargo bay. The loading chamber floor grid is rated for cargo repulsor operation. 6 meters of graded durasteel over a 6-meter drop to the cargo level below. The grid can be partially deactivated from the wall panel that the 7th sister, entering from the north access, will have her back to. The 7th sister enters the chamber. Her spinning double blade is active. The sound of it fills the space immediately, a rotating layered hiss, higher than a standard saber. Almost musical in its dissonance. Leia deactivates the floor grid section beneath her. The 7th sister drops 6 meters. The sound of her catching herself, the force absorbing the impact, a concussive burst of controlled energy against the cargo level below, travels back up through the shaft. Then, the sound of her coming back up, fast, she comes up angrier. Her blade finds the rim of the floor opening. Her form as she clears it is correct, precise, exactly what decades of training produces. Leia draws her saber for the first time in actual combat. The 2-toned blade catches the loading chamber light, white-pink, the red ghost pulsing at the core. When the blades meet, the triple-frequency collision is not like anything either of them has produced alone. The 7th sister's eyes register it. She adjusts. She is better than Leia. She has 40 years of refinement that Leia does not have, and the saber work in the next 90 seconds confirms this in every exchange. She finds gaps. Corrects for Leia's adaptations before Leia has finished making them, drives her back toward the wall in a sequence that is elegant in its completeness. Leia kills the lights. Total darkness. The chamber, the corridor behind it, every sub-level lighting circuit she can reach from the control partition she accessed 4 exchanges ago. 3 seconds of nothing visible. 2 blades humming at their respective frequencies. The 7th sister's footwork adjusting to darkness, trained, rapid, compensating. Leia does not adjust. She was already navigating by force sense. She has been doing it since she was 10 years old in a blindfold on a basalt training floor. The 3 seconds end. Her blade finds the gap she has been waiting for since the second exchange. The 7th sister's weapon hits the floor. The atrium is carved from raw cliff rock, lit from below by the lava river visible through the exterior viewport, everything orange and black and moving. She reaches it from the south corridor. At the same moment Vader reaches it from the north, and between them, the 5th brother occupies the center of the space. He is scared. She can hear it in his footwork, the extra pressure on the lead foot that compensates for a fighting stance gone slightly too wide. He has spent his career believing Vader is a force of nature, something to be respected and navigated rather than faced, and the revision of that belief is happening in real time and it is not going well for him. He has no good options. He chooses motion, attacks Vader's flank with his full form, aggressive and precise, buying himself the half-second it takes for Vader to reorient. Leia comes from his right. She does not announce it. She does not hesitate. She spots the gap in the second exchange, the single opening his form produces when his weight is committed to the follow-through on a high strike, and she brings her blade through it cleanly. The fifth brother's weapon hits the floor of the atrium. She steps back. The lava light moves across the walls. Vader's red blade is still ignited, his breathing harder than baseline, the respirator running faster, the war drum rhythm she has heard through walls, but never this close. Fifth brother was a master-ranked inquisitor, Vader says. He was overconfident, she says. Inquisitors usually are. Yes, Vader says. They are. The atrium is quiet except for the volcanic ambience pressing through the viewport and the respirator counting the seconds between them. The 501st withdraws to orbit. 40% of the ground force does not return to the landing craft. The upper fortress has taken structural damage. One level collapsed where a plasma conduit contact ignited a load-bearing junction, but the sublevels are intact. The Ysalamiri nursery, the workshop, the hyperbaric suite, everything below level 3 survived. Vader stands at the observation port in the uppermost intact level. 6 Star Destroyers fill the orbital band above Mustafar, holding position, waiting for orders that will tell them the assault has achieved its objective or direct them to begin a second approach. She stands beside him. We're leaving, she says. This is my fortress, he says. It is a building. The hyperspace window to the outer rim opens in 4 minutes. The exit route is already programmed. You programmed an evacuation route, he says. I programmed 6. I chose the one with the least ISB coverage in the approach corridor. He looks at the fleet. The respirator marks time. When did you arrange this? 3 months ago, she says. When I calculated there was a 32% probability that the ISB would trace the financial irregularities before I could complete the cover sequence. You knew this was coming. I knew it was possible. So I prepared. She pauses, not for effect, because she does not do things for effect, but because the next sentence requires the kind of precision she applies to everything. You should also know that I have a ship, crew, supplies, sufficient financial reserves to fund an extended, independent operation. We are not going into exile empty-handed. The respirator. A long pause. The lava river moves through the viewport below them, orange and indifferent. You built a fleet, he says, without telling me. I built a foundation, she says. The fleet is the next step. He turns from the viewport. He looks at her. Not the assessment she has spent 19 years being subjected to, not the calculation of capability or the verification of operational readiness. Something else, something that she does not have a word for yet, and suspects he does not either. 2 people on the same side of a door that is just opened, looking at each other from the same distance for the first time. Recognition. Lead the way, he says. She does. Deep space sounds like this, almost nothing. The command cruiser runs at minimal engine output between stars, and at minimal output the vibration through the hull is barely a suggestion. Less a sound than a quality of the air itself, the way a room feels different when something large and quiet is breathing in it. After Mustafar, after the volcanic percussion and the weapons fire, and the structural collapse of the upper fortress, and the respirator counting seconds through a battle, the near silence of the ship between jumps is something she registers in her body before she registers it in her mind. Aftermath, the particular silence of a breath held for 19 years, finally released. Han Solo is waiting at the docking port when she boards the command cruiser. His arms are crossed, and his expression carries the specific quality of a man who heard about Mustafar through secondary channels, calculated what it meant, and arrived without being asked, and is now experiencing the complicated emotional state of someone who did something decent and is not sure whether to acknowledge it. So, he says, you blew up a plan that was working. The plan was always going to end here, she says. I accelerated the timeline. By how much? Approximately 4 months. He looks at her. You want me to say I'm impressed. I want you to check your navigation systems and confirm the unknown region's coordinates I sent are in your computer. He checks. They're in. A pause. Where are these from? Data I recovered from the fortress before we left. Imperial Deep Space Survey files, classified at levels that don't officially exist in any standard registry. There are habitable systems in the unknown regions that no one outside Palpatine's private intelligence has mapped. You're suggesting we go somewhere the Empire has never officially been. I'm suggesting we go somewhere the Empire doesn't admit it knows about, she says. There is a difference. He looks at the coordinates on his screen. He looks at her. He does not say anything else. This is, she has learned, how Han Solo indicates that he has decided to trust something, not with words, with the absence of further argument. She moves past him into the ship. Vader has not left the hyperbaric suite since departure. The crew of the command cruiser knows who occupies that suite. They are professional and efficient, and they move through the corridors nearest it with the specific gait of people who are performing normalcy very carefully. She passes 3 of them on the way and reads the performance in each one. They will adjust. It will take time. She enters without signaling. The suite aboard the command cruiser is a field configuration, smaller than the fortress installation, the atmospheric equipment portable rather than built-in, the low hum of the pressurization system slightly higher in pitch from the smaller containment volume. Vader is in the primary alcove. The helmet is beside him on the equipment rack. His suit undergoing field repair cycling from the battle damage. In the low light his face is visible as suggestion and shadow. She does not look at it directly. She has never needed to. She reads him through other data. His breathing without the machine is effortful. Slow and careful, each cycle carrying audible labor. The sound of damaged lungs working hard against air that is adequate, but barely. More human than the respirator allows him to appear. More broken. Your crew is afraid, he says. They will adjust, she says. This fleet is yours, not mine. It is. You built it without my authorization. I built it, she says, because your authorization was not relevant to the problem. You taught me to solve problems with available resources. This was the problem. These were the resources. His breathing. In, out, the labor of it. I taught you to fight, he says. To think. To survive. Yes, I did not teach you to lead. She looks at him directly now. No, she says, quietly, that was Padam. Or her absence. What you showed me, without meaning to show me, about how not to let grief become surrender. The silence that follows is long enough to have weight. His breathing moves through it, slow and human. The sound of what remains of Anakin Skywalker underneath 19 years of black armor and everything the armor has done. She would have called this reckless, he says. She would have called it exactly reckless enough, Leia says. The helmet goes back on. She hears the seal engage, the atmospheric lock, the first mechanical breath of the respirator reasserting its rhythm, the sound of Darth Vader reconstituting itself around the man it contains. The mechanical voice returns, the baseline cadence, the permanent count. Then, lead, he says. I will not stand behind you. I will stand at your flank. That is all I am asking, she says. She gathers them in the command cruiser's briefing room. 47 people across 4 ships, patched in through the communication system, their faces in the grid of the briefing display. The 12 officers, Han at the back of the room with his arms crossed. Lando in a seat near the front because Lando always acquires a good seat. Vader stands behind her left shoulder. She does not ask him to be there. He simply is. She does not use notes. You are all here because you made a decision, she says. Most of you made it before I told you everything, which either means you're very brave or very trusting. And I am not entirely sure which would concern me more. A beat. A few faces in the grid almost do something that isn't fear. The Empire is going to continue, she says. We are not going to destroy it from the outside. We are not strong enough, and I will not spend your lives on a frontal assault that history has already proven does not work. What we are going to do is build something alongside it, something the Emperor's intelligence agencies cannot locate and his fleets cannot reach. We are going to use the gaps in what he knows, the systems he surveyed and filed as unstrategic, the regions he mapped and decided were not worth claiming. We are going to build there. We are going to be patient. She brings up the navigational hologram. The unknown regions, uncatalogued, vast, a galaxy's worth of space that no standard chart fully explains, marked in blue in the clusters she has spent 3 months identifying from Palpatine's own classified surveys. And we are going to be very, very dangerous to anyone who finds us. From the back of the room, what do we call ourselves? Han's voice. The question is half genuine, half the reflexive need to put a name on a thing so that the thing becomes real to him. She knows this about him now. She pauses. Something moves through her voice in the pause, not her mother's Senate cadence, not her father's operational authority, something that has been forming for 19 years in the space between them and has finally found its shape. We don't call ourselves anything yet, she says. Names are for when you're ready to be found. 3 moments. Then silence. Vader is alone in the hyperbaric suite when the fleet drops into the first unknown region's transit corridor. The suite's atmospheric hum is the only sound. The helmet is on. The respirator counts. He is looking at something on the suite's personal display. A small holographic image, the kind pulled from publicly archived records, the kind that existed in Republic Senate documentation before the Republic became a word people say carefully. A woman with dark braided hair standing on a balcony above a Coruscant skyline. Not a private image. A Senate session record, catalogued and accessible to anyone who knows the name to search. He looks at it for exactly as long as he needs to. Then he closes it. In the Force, across the ship, through 2 corridors and a pressure bulkhead, Leia feels him do this. She does not know what he is looking at. She knows what it means to be that still. She has known since she was 5 years old. She stands at the command cruiser's main viewport. The unknown regions spread before the ship, uncatalogued, unnamed, unowned, by anyone who is currently looking for her. She is 19 years old. She has a fleet of 4 ships and 47 people, and a father who stands at her flank, and a brother she has kept alive from a distance on a grid reference in a Tatooine desert, and a dead mother whose political genius she inherited across the space of never having met her. She presses one hand against the viewport glass. The cold of deep space is in it, transmitted through the material as a fact rather than a sensation. There is no peace in this. There is no home yet. There is only the next move. And she has already thought of it. She thought of it 3 weeks ago, and refined it twice since, and it is ready when she is. She smiles. Small, real, not about happiness. About certainty. In his throne room, Palpatine reads the damage report with the same stillness he brought to the original intelligence file. "My Emperor," the aide says. "The 501st confirms Lord Vader's fortress is destroyed. Lord Vader's status, unknown. No confirmed kill. Intelligence suggests he departed before the assault completed." Palpatine does not move. "And the girl?" "Also unaccounted for, Your Majesty. She departed with 4 vessels. We have no hyperspace trace. The throne room holds its own sound, the wind against the exterior of the tower, the hum of the overhead lighting, the particular quality of a very large space waiting. So," Palpatine says, very quietly. He chose her. He rises. He walks to the viewport. Beneath him, Coruscant fills the frame, its millions of lights, its layers of obedience, its civilization arranged outward from this building in every direction to every visible horizon. "Find them," he says. A beat. "Find them both." The Emperor spoke those words into the largest intelligence apparatus in galactic history. He deployed 32 agents, 4 Inquisitors, and 6 Star Destroyer battle groups to find them. He found nothing. Not for years. Because Leia Skywalker, the Princess of Shadow, the heir of House Vader, had built her kingdom in the one place the Emperor had already looked and decided wasn't worth keeping. And she was ready when he looked again.